Hello, and welcome to this session for the Festival of Nature 2021. My name is Ebony, one of the festival crew for this year, and I am delighted to have Ruth Hyde join us because we're going to be talking all about the importance of our woodlands. So Ruth has been Director of Brand and Communications at the Woodland Trust for some 6 years, almost 7 years now. So we're in really good hands as we talk about this incredible green space. I know from my own perspective and my own experience in the last year, my local woodland has been an absolute sanctuary for me. So Ruth, welcome. And I am sure the listeners would love to hear a little bit more about your role and actually what inspired you to join the Woodland Trust. And then we'll get in to the nitty-gritty of the importance of our woodlands.
Well, hi, Ebony. And I have to say, I do sometimes feel I'm the luckiest person on the planet with the job that I've got. So what isn't to like about woods and trees? And as you said, I joined it was just over 6 years ago. And I was looking for a change. So my job was tourism before, and I'd always done tourism marketing. But I wanted something where I felt I could really make a difference. And I've always enjoyed being outdoors. So it was fate that this job came up at the time I was looking. And I've been here, well, it's the longest I've ever been in a job. So I think that says something about the cause and what we're here for, but also about the way we work. And I work with some amazing, passionate people. Sometimes that passion is a little bit too much at times, but you know what? Isn't that better than working with people who really don't care about what they do? So that was kind of how I joined, always interested in the environment, wanted to know more, wanted to be able to give something back. And then in terms of my job, well, brand and communications, it's about sharing what we do because we do some amazing work. And we've got different audiences. So we want to talk to the general public about what we do to inspire them to support us, whether that's as a member, as a volunteer, or as a campaigner. We want to get people out into the woods and enjoying and getting the most out of that experience. But we also do work with landowners. So we want them to plant trees and restore ancient woodland. And then we do work with influencers, so government policymakers, because obviously if there's a great policy in place, great government targets, then that helps us do what we do. It provides an incentive to make those things happen. So it's quite a mixed role. So it's everything from, well, in normal days, attending exhibitions, seeing what people are doing, events and things like that, to talking to government and everything in between. So it's a great job.
Yeah, sounds it. Really does sound it. So I've got heaps of questions, Ruth, but if you are watching this live across the multitude of our digital platforms, then please do get your comments and questions in and I will do my hardest to throw them up to Ruth as well. So this seems like an obvious question, Ruth, but I think it's a really important one. You know, why are woods so important? And what has the last year brought into focus in terms of the Woodland Trusts and its users? Because it's been a difficult and different year for all of us.
I mean, I think I'll do the second question first, because actually the last year has brought woods and trees and the outdoors into focus. And it's been a bit of a lifesaver for a lot of people, because that ability to get outside and do something and get closer to nature, I think it's something that's always in the background, but it really brought it into focus. And I'm lucky that there's a little woodland walk and a park just 5 minutes from my door. And the number of people that have been out there at all times of the day and actually into the night as well has been incredible. And so you can't say there's a benefit of a pandemic at all, but what you can say is that actually it has made people think about things that are important to them. And it has brought the outdoors and our woods and trees into focus. And so that is really important. And we want to make sure that carries on into the future. And in terms of woods and trees, you know, you can start at which I do, what's not to like about them, because they're just marvelous things. But also they help clean the air for us. They can help in terms of flood mitigation. They cool our cities, so they help bring the temperature down a little bit. They help in terms of pollution. They improve health. And of course, very appropriate at the moment, they lock up carbon, and they lock up a lot of carbon. So there are so many things that trees do. And I remember somebody saying to me, if there weren't trees, you'd invent something and it would be a tree because of the amazing things that we do. And I don't think we value them enough. And that's what I'd like to see change, that we really, really understand their value and appreciate them. But as much as anything, it's about that. Aren't they just wonderful? And getting outside and walking in the trees is just a fantastic thing to do.
Yeah. And they're an incredible wildlife haven as well, aren't they?
Well, they are. And we've got two crises at the moment. We've got climate change and you've got a nature crisis. And both of them kind of link together because reduction in outdoor spaces means that does impact nature. And yet trees, you know, an ancient oak tree could probably be home to 2,000 different species. Now that's just unbelievable. And if you go through the woodland, and I do remember early days of lockdown, how noisy the birds seemed to be. And it was great, but it was a cacophony of noise. It was just fantastic. And it makes you realise who lives there and what they're doing. And the more you look, you know, and I think that was one of the things about going for my walks in lockdown. I kind of slowed down and I watched the seasons change and I saw the wildlife because you just had somehow a little bit more time to look at things. And then you realised how important they are for that. Now, we at the Woodland Trust talk about native trees. They're trees that have kind of, they're part of the country. They've always been here. And they're better for wildlife because actually the wildlife has adapted to them. So for us, that's important to us. But actually, all trees provide homes for wildlife in some shape or form. So, you know, it's easy to say, is there a bad tree? I'm not sure that there is in my book, but there are some that add more value.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, with that, you know, there's obviously been much more of an influx of our UK population and around the world going into these green spaces and these blue spaces. You know, how has the Woodland Trust been managing this kind of welcomed influx of woodland users?
Well, it was actually quite tricky to start with because we had the influx and we were absolutely inundated, and particularly when a lot of attractions were closed. So a lot of places closed very quickly, and we wanted to stay open the whole time. And actually, it's really quite difficult to close a woodland anyway. You know, you can shut the gates, but I think that's quite meaningless. But we wanted to make sure that we were there and we were able to do something. And there has been an impact just because of the volume of people coming in, particularly on some of our bigger sites. And that was kind of tricky. And some of that was just about the number of people, more rubbish, wear and tear on the paths, people going off the paths, all of those sorts of things. And we didn't have volunteers because obviously early days, volunteers were not considered as being essential workers. So the people that are the eyes and ears for us on the estate weren't around. So it was quite challenging for us. But we have a helpline anyway. So people would report if there was fly tipping or things like that. And in some areas it was worse than others. But actually, you know, we're kind of trying to work through that because the key thing is, we want our woods and trees to be visited. We want people to be there. And then I suppose the challenge going forward is actually how people behave. So, you know, take your litter away. Don't leave your dog poo around. All those sorts of the little bits and pieces, they're the things that make a difference. Because as long as we can start managing the numbers or, you know, change routes or do something different, we can do that. It's when you get the big things, as I say, like fly tipping, that it's just incredibly frustrating and unnecessary, but we want people to be able to enjoy the outdoors, and there's so many woods out there. So I guess the thing for me is we've got on our website, it's called Visit Woods, funnily enough. It's very simple, and you can find a wood near you. So actually look at the places that are near to you, look at the places that are likely to be less busy, and go and try those instead, because that's a way of managing the kind of footfall across all of our woodlands, not just ours, but everybody else's as well.
What a great tip. Just say that website again.
So our website is woodlandtrust.org.uk, and then you just type in the Visit Woods session and you'll find all publicly accessible woodland.
How wonderful. Look, so there's one little call to action for us all today is maybe go and visit a wood we didn't know about that was close or near to our doorstep. So, you know, you've highlighted some really important things about the importance of woodland through to climate change, wildlife haven, our mental health and our kind of sanctuary. In some ways, perhaps we could say the pandemic has given us a gift in the fact that we have connected with these green spaces again. So you've almost got this potentially some new audience members, some new people who are interested in Woodland Trust. So how are you going to keep inspiring these people to keep coming back, not only to come back, but also to make a connection and to champion these spaces? Because the theme of of this year's Festival of Nature is about being a voice for nature. And obviously, Ruth, you are a voice, you are, brand and communications manager for the Woodlands Trust, but every individual who uses these spaces can become positive influencers and positive voices for these spaces. So what is the Woodland Trust doing?
Well, to start with, particularly early days of the pandemic, we provided a lot of activities because I think the first impact was around homeschooling. And I can't imagine what it was like for families, all of a sudden with the kids there, really struggling to find things to do. And we have a huge amount of resource for kids and families on our website. So one of the things we wanted to do was actually to provide some sort of help for people, because if you're stuck inside and you've got your 1 hour exercise a day, you wanted to make the most of it. So some of it was actually things you could do at home as well as things that you could do out in nature. So that was about helping make that connection. Go out on a walk, pick up leaves, bring them back, do some sort of art projects. It was all those sorts of things that you could do. And we wanted to make that connection. And obviously, once you've connected with us and you could sign up to our newsletter and find out more about more and different activities we do. And visits to our website exploded over that period of time because people were desperate for things to do.
Yeah.
And we were just in a really lucky position that we had activities that we'd been doing them for years, and we had that availability. So we could pull all those things together and really make it easy for families in particular to find things to do. But then if you sign up to our newsletter, then that's when we can start taking you on a journey. So you can find out more about us and what we do and about our campaigns and about where the woods are. And it's about doing as much or as little as you want, but it's about a chance to know what's going on. Because I think for a lot of people, it's like, where do you start? And if you've always been outdoors, and my parents were big advocates of stickers in the garden because we made less mess. Well, we probably made a lot of mess in the garden, but not in the house. So I was kind of used to being outdoors. But if it's actually not what you're used to doing, or you live in an urban location, for example, and you're just not sure what to do, sometimes that knowing where to start is the really tricky bit. And so that's what we wanted to do was help people with that and that getting started. So there's lots of small things that you can do, but that start making a difference. And I think it's easy for us to think about woods and woodland and large places that are not accessible, perhaps. But there are street trees, there are trees and woods around your parks and gardens. So it doesn't mean to say you have to go a long distance to find somewhere where you can really enjoy the outdoors and do a lot of these activities. So I think that's really important. And I think people think that we're about huge estates in Scotland, and we have those, but around about a third of our sites, and we've got 1,200, are urban or on urban fringes, and some of those are really quite big as well. So it's just knowing where they are, hence coming back to the website, seeing what's there, and then you get a chance to see what is close to you.
Yeah, that's great. So it's great that you were so proactive and reactive in this time to provide resources from individuals, families, schools, communities, and we're going to come on to some of those kind of call to actions that we can all do in a moment. But I think it's so important that, following on, the whole point of this talk is about the importance of our woodlands. But I'd really like to hear from you, Ruth. What is the state of play with regards to our woodlands in the UK, and are we where we want to be?
The big answer is it's not brilliant. And no, we're definitely not where we want to be. We've recently launched, just at beginning of April, our first State of UK Woods and Trees. So it's a massive report. It's brought together loads of information, loads of data sets into one place, and it gives us a point in time, where are we now? And so we know we are one of the least wooded countries in Europe. It's roughly 13% of our land cover is woods and trees. European average is well into the 30%. So that's not brilliant. And in the last period of time, the number of trees has increased slightly, but actually the quality of the woods and trees has gone down. So, and that has the impact on nature. So actually, if you look at, a lot of our woods are in a really poor condition. We estimate about 7% are in a good ecological state, so they're good for nature. So that's not a brilliant place to be. We also know that there are government targets that to get to carbon neutral. We want to be planting 30,000 hectares of woodland a year. And at the moment, it's well under 10%, 10 hectares. So that's a big challenge. We really need to make a difference there. We also, even more importantly, need to protect what we've already got, because we've got ancient woodlands that have been there for hundreds of years, and that's only 2% of the woodland in the UK. They provide the most amazing habitats, but they also store the most carbon as well. So we need to protect what we've got, and then we need to create more. So that's a real challenge for us as well. So lots of things to do. But it isn't all doom and gloom. We can make a change, but we need to make that change now. So it's not something we go, let's leave this till tomorrow. The time to act is now. And I think the country is behind this. So it's actually, what are the actions? What are the things that we can do to make a difference?
Yeah. And I think that brings us lovely onto exactly that question, because I think it'd be really nice to discuss in a bit more detail what people can do to support their trees in their local areas, regardless of where they live, whether they live in a flat, in an estate, in a house, on a barge boat, wherever. I'd love you to touch on both the urban and rural areas, because we're going to have a very varied listener base here.
Sure. So if you look at our urban areas, one of the big campaigns that we were involved in, but we didn't lead, was around the Sheffield street trees. And this must be a couple of years ago now. And unfortunately, the council was going to have some trees chopped down for a variety of reasons. But actually, they were really important to the people in that area. And so they campaigned to stop that, to make sure, because obviously if they're safe, that's the key bit, then why would you want to get rid of them? But there is a cost involved in looking after trees. You can't ignore that. So, it's a difficult conversation to be having. But actually, at the end of the day, those street trees and the things that are close to you, we need to value those. And if we need to look after them, and we need to make sure they're in a good condition. But we need to value them. And what tends to happen is they're kind of in the background. And it's only when something's going to happen to them that we actually campaign. So it's actually, let's be proud of what we've got. Let's be proactive in terms of what we've got. And let's make sure we keep what we've got. So there are things like that we can do to start with. We do community and schools tree packs, and we do this twice a year. And actually, a lot of our tree packs go into urban areas. So, and they're relatively, you can go from quite small to sort of 400 trees in a pack. So that's quite a commitment. But actually, we've got probably more schools in urban areas are taking advantage of the small packs and planting them on their sites. And that's a great activity, because one, it's about getting more trees in the ground, but it's also about doing things with young people. And it's something that they really remember doing. It's one of those things that stick with them for life. And we're also doing our own, when we get new sites, we tend to have community days, we have school days, because we want to give kids the opportunity to do that, to actually make that connection at a really young age and then do something different. So there are practical things like that. We also want to encourage people to campaign and help lobby government. And the more voices we have, the louder we can shout about what's important. So some of our campaigners do some amazing things. So some of them will actually be checking on planning applications to see if there's something that's going to threaten a local or a much loved wood or an ancient woodland. We've got people who will campaign around a particular activity. So there are lots of ways that you can get involved in terms of campaigning, even if there isn't something on your doorstep. And then there's the wider scale. So you can become a member, come and support us. And it's not just us. I mean, I'd like to say it's all about the Woodland Trust, wildlife trusts. We've got other organisations as well who are doing the same sort of thing. So it's about going and supporting them and volunteering with them and taking action and providing that general support. And I guess a more basic thing is actually, for me, taking action is going outdoors and appreciating the doorstep, because then you start valuing it. So, if everybody went outdoors now, apart from they've missed the rest of this session, is as they're going on, because it is amazing. And I think if you value something, you're more prepared to fight for it and stand up for it when there's a problem.
Absolutely, could not agree more. And like you say, you know, a big old oak tree can be supporting, you know, 2,000 other little lives there. So by going out and admiring and taking note of those trees, you can actually start to look within that tree and the ecosystem that tree supports as well. So absolutely. You kind of touched on this, you know, so planting trees is clearly a great thing for people to do as individuals or communities. And some people might say, not everyone wants to plant a tree. You know, would you agree with this? I know you've got some lovely stories around this.
I think that's, it's actually funny because somebody else had said that to me recently. And I think there's a bit of a truth in that not everybody does, but everybody has to. And not, you know, you can put a tree in your garden, but not everybody's got the space. And if you live in a flat, why would you? So there are other things that people can do as well. And that's where it kind of how you feel. And it's when you see kids, particularly in the urban locations, getting incredibly dirty, mud everywhere, the shouts of joy and delight and the absolute anarchy that goes with it. And I have an example. I went up to Scotland a few years ago, and we would the centenary of the First World project, and we were planting on Orkney. Now, Orkney is not known for its trees. In fact, it's definitely not known for that. And we did this tree planting on a it stood in my mind. There was a lady who said she was a granny, and she was in her Sunday best, and she was just coming to see. She was interested, but she was on her way to church. So I remember she had a shirt on, and she was going, "Oh no." They actually were in exactly the same position. So they're in the beautiful clothes for a weekend, and again we found them planting a tree a bit later on. So everybody was getting something out of that experience. I'm not sure if you missed a bit of that, because it sounded like we were having a bit of a streaming problem there.
Yeah, a little bit of a glitch, but no, yeah, it just goes to show that these experiences, if you ever have got the opportunity to go and get involved with planting trees, even if you think at first thought, oh, not sure if I'm gonna get anything from this, you absolutely will. And it's not just for people with gardens and with estates, like you say, these community packs, and your kind of your local councils, and also, you know, your places of work. You know, you work within the community and brands team. Your place of work can also get behind an initiative as well, can't they?
Yeah, and it's, you know, and I think when you look at this 30,000 hectares, now a hectare is the size of a rugby pitch. It's massive. When you talk about we're looking at 50 million trees over a 5-year period, it's massive numbers. But actually, every single tree counts. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important to think that, or, you know, when sometimes you see a big target, you think, well, I can't make a difference, but you can, and individually can. So, you know, lobby at your workplace, because actually trees there make for, you know, if you've got place and you can go out and sit under the trees at lunchtime, isn't that marvelous? It doesn't have to be dozens and dozens of them. Small numbers will make a difference, because all those small numbers will add up. And I think that would be a really important message to get across, is individuals can make a difference, and it's the small differences that all add up. So don't think that what you're doing won't make a difference, because it genuinely will.
Yeah, and I think that's such a nice message, and also probably a really good poignant message to kind of end on, that no matter where we are, whether we're children, whether we're retirees, whether we live in a city, whether we're in the countryside, we can all provide a voice and do something to support our woodlands, because they ultimately are going to support us. So it's most definitely a two-way street. So Ruth, thank you so much for your enthusiasm, your passion, those, you know, really startling but good wake-up call facts and figures, and all those tangible tips that we can do both as individuals and communities. like I say, with the voice of nature being the theme for the Festival of Nature 2021, I think you've been an absolutely fantastic one, and I wish you all the best in the Woodland Trust, and thank you to the Woodland Trust for staying open for us over this year, and being part of our sanctuaries across the UK. I know that I massively appreciate it, and I'm sure many of the listeners also do too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So for all of you listening in, if you're watching back, thank you. If you're watching live, thank you as well. Do make sure that you share your take homes using the hashtag Fest of Nature 21, and also share your nature stories about what nature means to you by using the hashtag #InMyNature. So thank you and have a great day.